Mensa, welcome to the Process Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm very good, thank you.
Mensa, you are one of the two creators of the journal Today Well Spent, which I have in my hands right here. This is edition 7 for myself. I was given this as a Christmas present. I think it was 2 years ago from one of my coaches here, Liam. He's been on the podcast many a time. He is also an avid fan, by the way. And he picked it up in a little bookstore, gave it to me for a Christmas present, and I have literally been hooked ever since. I've done a lot of journals before that. I've done freehand journaling. I've done years of 5-minute journals. I have tried passion planners. And this one, for some reason, I just feel like all the questions and the prompts on every single day just really spoke to me.
Wow.
And so obviously we have been speaking back and forth through the wonderful world of social media. And I'm very excited to have you on here because personally and selfishly, I have a million questions behind this journal and how you came to create it and what the stories are behind each and every question that you included in it. But let me hand the mic over to you. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
All right. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's also one of my projects to try to know our users more, although I don't like the word users, but you are a user of the journal. So me, I am born and raised in China, but I spent 12 years abroad, 6 years in Canada, 6 years in Italy, in Milan. I used to work in fashion e-commerce. My last year in Milan, I worked with one of the world's largest fashion influencer. And just, some days I would wake up and realize that's not what I wanted to do. But I was younger back then, so I didn't really know if it's not this, what is it that I'm passionate about? What is it that I should pursue? So I quit my job and moved to Bali for a month. That was the first time I heard about the digital nomad lifestyle. So I moved there because I thought, out of all the things that I love doing, what is it that, really nourishes me? And it was travel. So I thought, okay, so travel, that must be my passion. So I started working on a project about travel. It's called the Travel Brief. And that was my first attempt for starting a business. And then after a while, I realized maybe fashion is not my passion and travel is just kind of an escape from my days in fashion because I didn't really feel that inner drive and fire when I'm working on the travel project. I realized I don't really want to work on travel. I just want to travel, period. But then I was in Bali, so I know you've been to Bali many times.
Quite a few times. And Bali has this magical like mind and body and spirit aura around it. And everybody there, they talk about that too. So I got quite into that. I tried my first meditation there, my first yoga class there, everything that you would maybe consider as a personal development concept, I picked it up there. But then I still felt like there was something missing because I think when it comes to spiritual journeys, I don't want to just hear stories. I want to really experience myself. So I kind of went on a hunt about different experiences, but none of them really satisfied me. So what happened was one of my friends, she pointed me towards this channel called Spiritual Science in the wonderful world of YouTube. And I all of a sudden realized, okay, so there's actually a lot of, science that could be linked to spirituality. So the part that I can understand is the science. The part that I will try to manage to experience myself is the spiritual part. So because the algorithm of YouTube works so well, they started pushing me all those other content about, the science of gratitude. Why should we be doing intermittent fasting, like everything related to that topic, all of a sudden at the age of 28 came to me. And I was really, really overwhelmed because I always chase after efficiency and productivity. I was like, how can I do all of that all at once? and it was impossible. So after Bali, I moved back to Shanghai and I met my co-founder, and then we started exchanging notes, and we realized, all the things that we hear in podcasts, watching videos, reading in books, if we don't practice it on a daily basis, they're just things that we hear and we watch and we read. So that's where the journal came to birth, basically. So it was really a product for ourselves to put together and to practice and to track what we have learned and make those new best practices like really a part of us, not just something that we learned about.
Can you tell me about the spiritual experiences? tell me about this journey of yours.
Right. So I'm a big fan of not wasting time. So I really want somebody to tell me what my passion is, so I don't waste time on things that, for example, fashion, that's not really my passion. So I went to a lot of healers in different, let's say, genres. The ones that read cards, the ones that just look at you, the ones that calculate based on your birth charts, etc. And I never get an answer. Actually, until a few days ago. So I think that was the time I realized, spirituality is not something that you just look for, and you can't find answers from outside. Like, nobody's going to tell you that answer. And the entire journey of wanting, of pursuing, of experimenting, I think that is the purpose of the whole. Wait, are we talking about the meaning of life now?
I love that stuff, so continue.
Right. So I think that really was a mindset shift, right? Like when I talk about, we put a lot of science research into creating this journal because that's what works for everybody, right? The spirituality is so personal. You can't tell another person like this is your life purpose and you gotta like work on it and go after it. You don't know what that person is going through. You don't know the background, what they've gone through, what how their childhood was. You don't know any of it, right? Like nobody, like the gurus, they can talk about the Tao of things, the way of things, but nobody's going to give you the answer what your purpose is. So that was a mistake that I made. And whenever we market our brand or our journal, we always say it's what we say more in Chinese now because I'm based in China now. We call it mind, body, and brain. We don't say the word spirit or soul because like if we can draw it, like it's really a triangle. The triangle is the foundation. It's your mind, it's your body, it's your brain, how they're working in coherence with each other. And in between, like they're protecting this thing that we call soul, and we're not in the right place to really talk about it. And that's what we build the foundation with our journal, with our content, so people can really explore what's, the nectar themselves.
So it sounds like when you were seeking these quote unquote experts in the spiritual fields, you were looking for an answer.
Right.
And so what were those answers? Was it career driven? Was it intimacy? Were you just looking for, you just wanted to have your future mapped out for you?
Yeah, pretty much that. I never really had a specific thing. I asked for all of it, and I like comparing answers because I figured if different people tell me different things, but some are matching, that must be it. That was the mentality back then.
And at what point did you realize that maybe this isn't the way to go about it?
I think from a logical perspective, just none of it, like everything they told me, none of it made sense. Like there's no crossing, there's no matching. And it just didn't feel right. Like I didn't feel that satisfaction or the drive after I hear maybe an answer. And it's really a dance between, the thinking mind and the feeling mind.
You said a few days ago something changed.
Right.
What happened?
I did my first I don't know what they're calling, Akash record reading.
Okay. No, I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I just never was into that because I always thought it was something that that's borderline scamming because a lot of people they learn about how to do it and then they charge money to do it for other people. So that's not something that I would promote. But there was a really good friend of mine and I really trust him and he's on the spiritual journey. He's in Colombia doing all those crazy things. And he's like, you should get your soul read by my friend. And I didn't know it was the Akash reading. So I thought, yeah, sure. I guess it was some sort of like, chakra scanning or whatever. And because I'm interested in experiences, so I went, right? And then she started reading about those, the like she was giving me messages from my soul from this record. And at the very beginning, I was like, oh my God, I'm wasting my money here. But later on, she started saying things that really resonated with what I'm going through currently and with what I kind of got as a hint with my personal experience in the past 3 months because I went abroad. I went outside of China for 3 months after my burnout. We can talk about that later. It was quite magical and to put in simple words, basically, I'm a vehicle of the source that I am doing its work, and I'm simply a channel. And why that resonated with me so much is because this message I got on 3 separate occasions. Just one with just like a random documentary, and one with we have a community chat group, and somebody just took a picture of a book that she was reading, and it had similar messages on that. And another one is from a dream of mine. So I said, okay, so there must be something there. And I was so satisfied with this answer because I probably got similar answers before, but I was looking for specific answers, right? And I was like, that's not it. Like, am I supposed to be, a journalist? Am I supposed to be a doctor? Like, that's the kind of, career goals when we're young, like our parents teach us to dream to. So it's like, that must be the answer that I should be given. But this answer is so ambiguous and it was so beautiful because it's exactly how I feel. Like, you are a vehicle because you're not alone. Like, there's a higher force that's supporting your work, but whatever you want this work to be, you still have a say in it. And I think that's so important.
And so what have you taken from that?
What do you mean?
So, are you referring to the work that you're doing specifically with the journal?
Mm-hmm.
So what, in this more ambiguous answer to say, essentially, like, you are doing the work.
Right.
How has that made you feel? Do you know what I mean?
So powerful.
Yeah.
So powerful. I always, I think with Today Well Spent, what we really want to do is to let people know that they have a choice and they have control. And once they cover the bases, they can really reach infinite potential, but they have to stand on solid ground. And that's what the journal is. It's solid ground, mentally, physically, and emotionally. The past year, I was saying, past year had been really tough because, China had, we're not going to politics, but China had weird policies. In the past year specifically, a lot of turbulences in the society and a lot of things that didn't make sense. People in Shanghai would know. So I just felt helpless because our work is to build the foundation. But when people are severely depressed because they couldn't get out of their house, there's not much we could do for them. So I started to question, if we can't help people who really need help, like, what good does it do? But recently I realized just, everybody have different jobs, that's what therapists do. But before they get there, we're building their immunity. It's an inner immunity, just like working out, right? Like, are you really going to fight tigers? Why do you have to be so strong? Right? It's not just about the outcome. It's the whole process. Like, when people are sitting down every day, giving this time to themselves, they're building something within them that when the shit hits the fan, they have something to work with.
You talked about you talked about your triangle, mind, brain, body. What's the difference between mind and brain?
Right. So we really think of the brain as the organ, right? The function of it and the thinking of the brain, right? Like what it does. The mind is borderline heart, right? But in Chinese, like the mind is the heart. But what is the heart, right? Like the heart doesn't technically do anything other than pumping blood. So I think what we're trying to do with this triangle is to make people realize that when you're working on your brain, meaning the function of it and the software of it, that's something that you can work with. But when you're unhappy, when you say like my heart is broken, you can't just say like put your heart together. You can't do that. But you can work on the body. You can say, okay, I know you're really sad, but if you take a deep breath right now, it's gonna calm you down. It's gonna like call up your parasympathetic system to help you to feel better. And then you can maybe work on the mending heart part, which is really abstract. So everything in the triangle is concrete. There are practices you can do, there are protocols you can follow. What's inside, that's up to you. You just have to work on it.
I can see now, thinking about the things in the journal, I can kind of see how you are satisfying the mind, brain, and body in the questions and the prompts, and we'll obviously get into that a little bit later. I'd love to hear about, you mentioned burnout. Mm-hmm. Tell me about your burnout.
I read this article recently where it said burnout comes from not overworking, but overworking and not seeing results. And that's how I felt in the past year in China, because we also do offline events. So a lot of our offline events, which were taken off, were canceled or postponed because of the lockdown. And our factories and our logistic systems were paralyzed for a while, and we could see a really severe drop in both traffic, in our readership, and our sales. So I was really stressed because I made a mistake of building the team too big. And I still have to pay them salary, even though like most of the events were canceled. So that was a really stressful period of mine. And it was really ironic. Our journal, we say self-care, you have to work on your body, you have to work out, you have to meditate. I wasn't doing any of that for a really long time. I was in a really bad shape. At a point, I was like, this is not working for me. Like, I can't be leading, we call it a wellness company, when I'm being unwell. So that was really a wake-up call. When I had the chance, I left the country immediately, went to see my partner to kind of get my senses back. And it really worked. I think environment is so important. That's why when you ask me, like, what am I doing in Hong Kong? I'm really just taking up the energy here. It's so close to China, but it's very different. People hustle a lot, but I don't know. There's something uprising here that in China people are really losing.
I would agree and say that just a change in environment anyway. Any change in environment can be so important for getting just space and reset.
Right.
I want to know the process that you go through when it actually came to writing and putting this journal together. So you were saying that you and your partner were accumulating things from podcasts, YouTube videos. Obviously, you were practicing things yourself as well. How do you then go and start taking all those concepts backed by science, which I think is really cool? And again, I can see that in some of the Instagram posts that you put out and some of the things that are in the journal. But then how do you then actually start to construct the journal?
Right. So this is our third version. Our first version, before I was really embarrassed, but now I realized it was okay. It had a lot of typos in it. We sold our first version also in Bookazine. So that was 2019. And
Can I just pause you there, Mensa? At this point in time, because you mentioned at the start that Today Well Spent was a passion project.
right.
So were you in another job at the time when you started Today Well Spent?
Yeah, I was working on the travel startup.
Okay, so you're still in the travel startup. Okay, gotcha.
Right.
Continue.
So which turned out to be two passions. Anyways, right. So basically, there were things that we would practice. For example, gratitude. Right, like a lot of people do gratitude before they sleep, but then we would read in a book that talks about neuroscience of the importance of priming your mind in the morning. So it's really about I think just putting different pieces together and then trying it out and say, okay, how do we feel when we practice gratitude in the morning versus before we do it, doing it before we go to bed.
Can I just jump in there? Because I have done gratitude practices. I would say I started more as a nighttime activity. And since starting with your journal, it's become a morning activity. I think actually gratitude is something I practice continuously throughout the day, all the time.
Right.
But I definitely find it's very different doing a gratitude practice in the morning versus night. I find when I'm doing gratitude practices at nighttime, and let's say it's something like you're asking us to do, which is write 3 things down that you're grateful for. You tend to just think about the things you've done in your day.
Right.
And maybe you think about kind of like highlights or cool things that have happened. Whereas when it's first thing in the morning and nothing's actually happened,
Right.
it forces me to look a lot deeper.
Right.
And think about things perhaps that aren't linked to like
Right.
activities
Yeah.
or things or shiny objects, which I find is what was happening with the nighttime practice. What are your thoughts on that?
Right. So that's exactly why. So a lot of people were asking, why are we doing it in the morning when the day hasn't started? 2 reasons. One is that after you wake up, like your mind is still kind of, in the subconscious field. So whatever you do during that period will prime the state of your entire day. So if you're grateful, hopeful and optimistic, your day most likely will stay that way. So that's why we're asking people to do it in the morning. But another reason is exactly what you said. Like gratitude exercise is an exercise. It's practicing your ability to identify things that you should be grateful for. And sometimes it's so tiny. And I have so many people telling me, like, before they started writing the journal, they have no idea what to write down. And later on, they're like, those little things they come across throughout the day, they can pinpoint it. So it's really about cultivating that ability as opposed to just merely writing things down.
Yeah. I also set another rule for myself, which I struggle with, which is don't repeat a gratitude.
Wow.
And that's really hard because I think
That
sometimes
is really hard.
it's really easy just to fall back on the same things.
Right.
Like I'm always drinking coffee when I do my journal. And so it's really easy for me to say, I'm very grateful for my cup of coffee in the morning, which I really am.
Right.
But I feel sometimes I'm like, that's an easy way out for me.
Right.
So I've kind of put this extra pressure on myself to
That's
be like,
great.
come up with something novel and try not to repeat gratitude practices.
Yeah.
Is
wow.
anyone else doing that?
Not that I know of, but I'm gonna post about it if you don't mind.
No, please. Other things I really like that you ask first thing in the morning, something as simple as the time you wake up. I love that because it just makes you conscious about consistency and rhythm. So basically, those listening, there is a question that just says at the top right corner, what time did you wake up this morning? And I love just charting progress and seeing that, getting into the habit of writing that. But the thing I really, really love, which I would say actually had a profound effect on me, is the time taken between waking up and checking your telephone.
Right.
And so you ask people to circle either 5 minutes, 15 minutes, or 30 minutes.
30 plus.
30 plus. And actually, just that simple question 2 years ago was a thing that made me stop looking at any screens within the first 30 minutes. And that's now extended to an hour.
Wow.
So I would say that I don't open a screen, look at a laptop, look at a telephone until pretty much 50 to 60 minutes after waking. And I think that, I just want to say thank you for including that in the journal.
Oh, no, thank you for doing it.
No, I really love it.
How do you feel like before and after? Do you notice?
I notice a massive difference. I find, so for example, right now we are in the middle of a competition. So we have a 3-week competition called the CrossFit Open. Every Friday morning, I have to wake up and go straight to the computer to find out what the workout is and basically change all of our programs for that day and for the next week. So that's a day where I'm breaking the rule of not
The
checking.
cheat day.
Exactly. Not checking screens within 30 minutes of waking up. And the cascading effect that has on my day, especially in the more immediate morning, is this like that dopamine addiction of wanting to continue to check my phone. And it's crazy. Even this morning, I wasn't feeling too good last night. My girlfriend actually was sick yesterday, and I feel like I might have caught a bit of her bug last night. And so I woke up and I actually stayed in bed for a little bit longer. And I asked her to bring my phone into the bedroom because I wanted to message the team and say I wasn't going to be training today. And just that simple act of staying in bed, messaging the team to say I'm not going to come to training, I then picked up my phone probably 5 more times in the next 10 minutes. And I realized consciously that I was doing it. And I guess, to answer your question, yeah, I really noticed the difference. Like starting the morning with stillness, with the disconnect, and just being super present with what's in front of me has a very, very big effect on the rest of my day.
Right. Yeah. There are 2 reasons we put that in actually. So when we started the journal, it was 2019. So obviously we asked ourselves, is this going to be a paper thing or is it going to be an app? Of course, we would reach more people and it would be easier if it's an app. We were talking about why we put the phone thing in the morning. So 2 reasons. One is when I came back to China, it was crazy how addicted everybody was to their phone. And I would see friends, because I lived abroad for 12 years, so a lot of friends that I didn't see for a long time, and they would talk to me and be on their phone at the same time. And that was such a mirror for me because I was just as addicted. Because I worked in social media, in fashion, and it was a social influencer. So most of our job was on the phone. And I didn't realize I was doing the same thing to other people. Like I would check my message someone else while talking, for example, to you. And I, at the time, would consider me being productive because I was multitasking. But not until I started learning about, like the brain doesn't multitask, period. And it was really rude to, to the person that I was with in reality, in the presence. And by having that done to me, like I realized that, right? So we're like, should we make this into an app or should we make this into a journal? So yes, absolutely, it should be a journal because at the time, the world doesn't need another app. We don't need more reasons to open up our phone. So that was one reason, and another reason it's more like design related. It's just this is called attention journal, right? Like attention, a big part of attention is sustained attention and ability to focus. And if you look at your phone in the morning, you skip a very important phase of your brain that would help you to later focus. Like you immediately ask your brain to jump into distraction mode because the moment you open the phone, you get all kinds of messages. Your brain jumps into this multitasking and this stressed kind of state because obviously, you miss so many things. The world missed you, right? The world without you would not spin properly. So you must be under a lot of stress to check what's on the phone. And that's just not the right way to start the morning.
Yeah, well, I'm very thankful for you guys helping cultivate that habit. Me, and I honestly think, with or without the journal, that's something that I will take to the grave. And it's something that I try to pass on to as many people who are interested in hearing about it. I wanted to ask about the next thing that you ask. It's not actually a question, it's more of a statement. So every day there is a quote.
Affirmation.
It's an affirmation. And there's a little download button. And actually you'll see that sometimes this morning, actually, I circled. If it's something that really deeply resonates with me, I'll circle it. So this morning's was, I embrace change and easily adapt myself to new situations. I wanted to ask, these affirmations that you get, where did you get them from?
My partner's brain.
Okay.
Yeah, he wrote them all.
And are they collections from famous quotes or things that you guys have heard? Because I would say that more than 50%, I'm like beating my chest in the morning, like, yes.
Right. That's why I was like, you should interview him because I think he will connect more. But no, he that's how he thinks, and that's his mindset. He was a really successful filmmaker and urban artist. So he actually made Shanghai Forever. I don't know if Alex knows that.
No. Al, have you heard of Shanghai Forever?
The video.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's your ex?
No,
No,
business
that's
partner.
my business partner.
Oh, is that the director?
Yeah.
What is that the video, sorry?
No,
He made
he's
it.
the one that he made that.
He directed that?
Right.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, so he wrote all the affirmations in the journal.
He did the Walking Backwards one as well.
Yes. Oh, you know him. Yeah.
No, I know his work. It's
Oh, okay. Yeah. So he didn't go to film school. Like he learned everything by himself, and he only works on projects that really resonates with him, that has beautiful impact, positive impact to the people around him. So that's why I think, you know, like you really feel that kind of power and that kind of that desire to make changes and impact in the world in the lines.
Yeah, I feel like it can give me kind of like a motivational boost sometimes, or even just affirmation that what I'm doing is right.
Right.
You know, and what I'm doing is to hear it or see it written in front of me, kind of like, I guess, you and your spiritual journey.
Right.
And getting the confirmations from the universe
Yes.
telling you that what you're doing
The
is actually,
synchronicities.
yes. Sometimes that can give you just like this real positive boost first thing
Right.
in the morning.
Yeah, positive feedback. You're like, ooh, I'm onto something.
Yeah, exactly. So the next thing you ask people to do is to state your one things.
Right.
So these are like hexagons
Right.
that you draw down your page. So it starts with the most important thing in your day, and then essentially kind of moves down your day to the, I guess, the least important thing.
Right.
But I always fill these in. Like there's not a day that I miss
Yeah.
where I'm not using the hexagons. To be honest, you also have another thing which basically is a time calendar, essentially. So timestamps from a day, and that's a chance for you to kind of write in your actual tasks to do. Now, I have to be honest, I don't use that part. Reason being, I have a very organized calendar on my computer,
Right.
on Google,
That's right.
which I feel I don't need to double up. But the stating your one things, or your most important thing, and then your next most important thing, your next most important thing, really brings focus and intention to my day. Right? It's like, I feel like I'm quite an organized person anyway. My diaries and calendars are generally kept pretty up to date, but it just brings that focus to the day. You know exactly what you have coming up in the day, and allows you to be a lot more, just allows you to stay on top of things. What was the idea behind that?
So the main inspiration came from the book, The One Thing. And The One Thing is all about you have limited energy and focus. You must reserve them for the most important and most impactful work or tasks or things or people, right? The one thing every day can change. It doesn't have to be work. I was just talking to a user, and she was telling me for a while she realized she only puts down work-related stuff in her one thing, and that's really depressing because she didn't like her work all that much. So that's kind of the idea that we're trying to promote to people. Like, you have to look beyond your work. Your work is not your everything. Even if you love it, you know, there are still other aspects. Try to put in your one thing, your focus, because it grounds you, just like what you said, right? Like it's so powerful to feel that mental clarity that you know exactly what needs to happen that will push the needles. And I think that's why we want people to, you know, put down your one thing, and everything else should be irrelevant. As long as you finish your one thing today, you're having a great day. Your today is well spent. That's the whole idea. Like, that's the kind of importance that we should be striving for when we approach our day. Like, something important it's bound to happen today, and I'm gonna focus on that. And for the calendar part, I'm glad you don't use it, actually, because we're not putting it there for people to, you know, from this hour I'm gonna do this. It's actually a reminder that you have limited time throughout the day. Like, this is all the hours you have. If you put down your one thing here, where do you want to do it, right? Like, I always just draw the arrow and then do the block. And then we have the off button as well. It's like, you know, like, you have to reserve time that you're not doing stuff. Either you want to go outside, you want to work out, you want to talk to somebody. Like, stay off your task and stay off the phone. So that should be, a natural rhythm of your day, not always focused, not always relaxed. It's a mix of both.
I actually love, now you're talking about it, remembering the off switch. And I love the addition of the off switch. So basically what it is, it's like, it says the time like 11 a.m. Then underneath that, you've got an option to hit off, and then 12 p.m. and so on and so forth. And when I first saw that, I thought that's pretty cool, because something I think about a lot is, consistency. Like, how much can I actually do consecutively before productivity, focus, acuity all starts to dip down?
90 minutes.
90 minutes I know is what the science is telling us, right? And I know for me as well, I'm most productive in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So, I wake up, have breakfast, and I want to get into my one thing straight away.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very lucky that I've been able to, I guess, manicure my work week to be able to start every day with the most important, most challenging, most complex task. And that often involves me sitting in front of my computer at home and doing, 90 minutes to 2.5 hours of deep work.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that is the most important stuff. And essentially every task after that becomes less and less important. And I know that tasks at the end of a day are going to be a lot harder for me to do versus the tasks at the start of my day.
Right.
Something else I piggybacked with that now has been, so I'm using this sound, it's called, I guess it's soundscaping.
Mm-hmm.
But
Endel?
Endel, exactly. So I've been using Endel now for probably about a year and a half. And I love Endel because I love the idea of setting a deep work timer.
Right.
And then you're kind of getting, backed by neuroscience apparently, sounds that can help you really focus.
Right.
It's just kind of like, did you use it yourself?
I did.
Yeah.
And then I switched something else.
Switch
That's
something
free.
else. Okay, nice. Yeah, I think I've bought like a year subscription. But setting a timer allows me to be even more focused in that
Right.
time. Right. So if I know, okay, I've got 60 minutes to like get my head down and graft,
Mm-hmm.
and then I kind of earn myself a 10 to 15 minute break, has been something I've added to the productivity, which has helped me a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I love it. I want to talk about something else that you also have, which I think is awesome. The 6 boxes that you ask people to tick at the end of the day. So essentially how your journal works is a 2-page journal, which I think is already quite unique. Most journals are probably going to be a page, right? And the fact that you have 2 pages means that you go through a lot more pages in less time,
Right.
but it allows you to get a lot more down each day. So
Right.
the second half of your day, so this is where I fill this one out at nighttime,
Mm-hmm.
it asks you to tick one of 6 boxes. 1 is, did you meditate today? 2 is, did you work out today? Did you have a deep breath or take a deep breath? Did you do kind acts? Did you have connection with other humans? And did you get jiggy?
Right.
I love all 6 of these questions, and I want you to tell me, where did you come up with these 6 and why? Because I think just to finish off this question,
Mm-hmm.
I think things like meditation and working out are things that most journals will probably ask you. But then things like deep breaths, kind acts, connection, and getting jiggy, where did those come from?
Right. So this is a self-care section, right? And I think when a lot of people think about the concept of self-care, it's about making myself feel good, right? It could even be a bubble bath that makes me feel good. But what really drives happiness in us is whether or not we can bring happiness to other people, and that's where connection comes in. And if we happiness is a multi-dimensional thing, right? Like when we talk about self-care, it's really like to make ourselves feel happy and feel good. So we have the work in and work out, meditation, breath work, that's all work in, and workout is the exercise, workouts, etc. But that comes to the heart part of the triangle, right? Or the mind. When we're connecting with others, there's something magical that's happening for both of us. And we always consider, like, if an individual feels good and can make another individual feels good, this individual will be in a happy environment. And even if that individual doesn't feel good, by being in a happy environment, this individual will automatically feel better. So that's why we always put things that's not just about ourselves. Like, it's important to focus on ourselves, but by focusing on ourselves, we can just bring more onto the table for others. And essentially we're all connected, right? Like the society it's a knitted net. So by supporting myself, I'm also supporting other people, and by supporting other people, I'm supporting in turn myself. So that's where, connection, doing kind acts all come from. And Get Jiggy is very simple. Like people are just not having fun anymore. And I was just actually reading another book about playfulness and how adults need more playfulness in order to combat stress. It's not just to play, like it's really being in a playful state, a playful mindset that will actually make the difference. So it's kind of interesting because we did all these back in 2019. So the boxes were set already. And more and more, like there are researchers coming out, books coming out that talks about the importance of each of them. And, that's the kind of sign that we were talking about earlier. So yeah, we're onto something.
Yeah. I mean, I love that just having to think about my day and whether or not I did a kind act has made me more conscious about doing kind acts.
Exactly.
Right. So it's kind of like that knock-on effect, the ripple effect into the rest of your life.
Right.
Even something like getting jiggy at first, I was like, how often do I get jiggy? I mean, at first, I haven't used that term in many, many moons, but I'm seeing that there's a little emoji of a guy dancing. And now I will actually try I will think seriously, like, did I actually like let my hair down and have a little dance today? And that could just be like 2 seconds on the training floor with my teammates and like, doing a stupid dance. And it is something now that I actually incorporate into my everyday without subconsciously, I would say now.
I love that.
But when it comes to each end of the day, I'm like, did I actually have a little dance today? And I'm like, yeah. And I would say most days I actually do. I'd probably say that's a one box. I don't tick enough. I probably would say I tick the other 5 pretty consistently. But also just like connection, deep connection. I think that's something that in my own personal journey, I have craved more and more of, just deeper connections with people. Less of the superficial and more quality deep time. So I love that prompt as well, that question.
Great.
I also love that you still included a space to doodle. So you basically left an open space, which is kind of like, I guess I use this as a thought dump. Right, which is like anything that I just have floating up in my brain. Whilst you have lots of great prompts, you still get that chance to freehand. Right. And I think, having used the 5-minute journal for many, many years, and I love the 5-minute journal just because of its efficiency and ease. What I wasn't doing with the 5-minute journal was doing like the freehand, just thought dumping. Right. And I really love that you have this part in the journal. I find that for myself, this often becomes like a walkthrough of my day. So I kind of bring myself back to the very first thing I did in the morning, and I kind of just walk minute by minute, hour by hour up until the present moment. And I'm kind of just pulling out highlights from my day. So things that went well, things that didn't go well, things I could learn from, unique experiences. What do you use that space for? Because I always wonder what other people are writing in that space.
That's so funny. What you just said, like, what did I do well? What did I learn? What could I have done better? Those were actually included as prompts in our first version. But then we kind of took that out because we wanted to give people more free room to write. Because maybe, our early users, they're already asking themselves that questions. And this free space is for them to either mind dump or drawing. Like a lot of our users actually draw stuff. I was mind blown because in China, like with the tech stuff, it's more advanced. We have this checking mini program, kind of like an app where they take a picture of their daily pages every day, and then we could see like what they're doing. And people are amazing painters. They just draw crazy stuff there. I personally use it to record my dreams because I remember almost all of my dreams, and
Me too.
Oh, great!
I'm quite a light sleeper, so I think I dream a lot.
Okay.
I have very vivid and know most of my dreams in the morning. But continue. That's interesting that you record your dreams.
Yeah, because I dream about crazy stuff. They're also really vivid, and sometimes I just Like I'm just shocked by the kind of imagination that I'm capable, or this brain is capable of when I'm dreaming. So I put them down also as a way for me to stay off my phone, because if I go on my phone, I forget about the crazy dreams I have.
So do you wake up and straight away you write down your dreams in the to-do area?
Yeah.
Huh.
Sometimes
cool.
I paint as well, because sometimes it's a picture.
Yeah. That's a cool idea. I mean, I will always, my girlfriend will often ask me, I think just 2 nights ago, she said I was making some weird ass noises at the middle of the night. And she put her hand on me because she was worried that something was going wrong.
Okay.
And I remember exactly what the dream I was having. And it was, I guess most people would see it as nightmares. I don't really see them as nightmares anymore. I guess I'm kind of like you. I'm actually fascinated by the creativity and the imagination that my brain can come up with, some of the shit that I dream of. And
what was it?
So the dream was really, really strange. Firstly, Tammy, one of our coaches here, I haven't told her this actually, I should tell her. I walked into what is my parents' bedroom, but it's not my parents' bedroom. But in my dream, I knew it's my parents' bedroom. And Tammy was running sideways on the walls. Like, so her feet were on the wall and she was sprinting around this room, like really, really fast. Like, it's quite scary, kind of like exorcist-y. Like, yeah. And so she was running around these walls and I was like, I need to stop her running through these walls. No, not really. But the next bit I was really scared. So then there was a window, kind of like this window here. And my parents had come to the door and I'd said that there are these spirits outside and they were, I don't know, I could feel that they were actually having an actual physical effect on me. Like they weren't just a spirit, like they were doing something to my body. I was having like this out of body experience.
Wow.
And so my mum had said, like, go over to that window. And I went over to the window and like a spirit had come over my shoulder and it was an old Chinese woman. And I knew in the dream, it was my mum. I can still remember this. It was like a week ago. So I ripped my hand behind, I pulled this spirit and it was just a sticker and I was crunching the sticker in my hand. Anyway, that was a bit. And then I ended up having like some wrestling match with this guy who's like apparently a savage killer. I killed him in this dream. And I think
Did you know this person in real life?
It was, I think, linked to the fiction book I was reading that night, which was like, had a similar scene. Anyway, like, yeah, weird things.
Yeah, that's why I love recording the dreams, because it's kind of like watching a movie.
It is. Yeah, it is. And I've kind of drawn some inspiration from that.
Right.
Maybe I should actually start writing down some of my dreams.
Oh, yeah. So when we're sleeping, our brain is still working. I don't know if you knew this, like the spiral shape of the DNA, the guy who came up with it, he saw it in his dreams.
Didn't know that.
Also, what song was it? One of the Beatles' song was also composed in the dream.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the dream is a really powerful space.
And are you reflecting back on those dreams, those dream entries that you're writing?
I do. And it's crazy because I don't remember a lot of them. And that's why I'm more avid about putting them down. Because when some I would remember and some are like, what, really? Like that came up in my mind.
Interesting. Okay, I think I'm going to try that. Just
Let me
for a
know how
little
it
bit.
goes.
Yeah, I will. Okay, there's a few other things I really love. I'm going to kind of brush over these because I think there's one thing that had a massive impact that we've now actually taken and put into the way that we coach people here because of your journal. So I love the phone question again. So at night time, like how many minutes before bedtime did you put your phone away? So you got your chance of to circle 5, 15 or 30. Again, that just made me really conscious. And now I'm about 45 to 60 minutes before bedtime.
Wow.
My phone goes away.
I'm curious. Did you work gradually towards this hours?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it really helps that I have a very consistent sleep and waking schedule. So pretty much every day starts at the same time. So my alarm doesn't really change. 5:45 pretty much every single morning.
That's early.
Which means, but my phone away time is 7:45.
Okay.
Right. So phone goes away at 7:45, and then really I'm in bed for about 8:30, and that's where I'll start reading, and then I'll go to bed usually around 8:45, 9. But
this is PM.
PM.
Okay.
Yeah. So at first it was phone away, it was around 8:15, and then it's like slowly as I cultivated the habit. Atomic Habits is something we refer to all the time. Such an amazing book. I think every human needs to read it, right? But cultivate the habit and then try and improve or extend the habit. And so now it's just gotten to the point where 7:45 is my latest cutoff time. But I would say that most days I would try cut off even earlier than that.
Wow.
And then, I communicate that openly with my team. My team want to reach me and want to speak to me. They know that don't bother messaging Ed after 7:30. You're not going to get a response. But again, having that open communication helps because I'm now not getting tempted. I know that the most important people who will need to contact me are aware that if it's an emergency, they can call me. Otherwise, it puts my mind at ease a little bit more,
Wow.
I love the big or small wins from the day.
Right.
Again, that's like, I think because I go through the process of like recalling my whole day, by the time I get to that section of the journal, I know exactly what the three things are. And then this is, I think, one of the coolest parts of your journal. It's the scoring system. So at the end of each day, you ask people to score 1 to 5. And I love that it's like a barometer where you like put the line on, but basically 1 to 5, priority, attention, energy, and mood.
Right.
And then you tally that up, a total out to 20. And then you basically write down what your score was yesterday, which I think is a lovely little addition because you're charting progress there.
Right.
And then the coolest thing of all of that is the fact that at the end of each week, you get this opportunity to tally up your scores from the week.
Wow, somebody actually noticed.
Because I wonder this, right? Because I literally use the weekly reflections. I think that's awesome. I never did weekly reflections before that. And I love the weekly tallies. And so I will always fill in.
Wow, look at the scores.
I will always fill in the weekly tallies, and I will even have a PR, which is a personal record. That's just CrossFit fitness terms. So I think my personal record, the highest weekly check-in I've ever had is 133, which is quite high.
Yeah.
So this week, I'll always look on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, like which was my best week.
Right.
And then I'll reflect back in the journal onto that week to be like, what made that week so great?
Right. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
where did that inspiration come from?
There's a term called what gets measured gets done. So all the 5 sections actually mirror different parts of the journal, right? Like the focus part is about, did you get your one thing? The priority is, did you get your one thing done today? Since it's so important, like, did you finish it? And the focus is about the deep work, the timeline section. Like, were you distracted? Were you focused? Did you set phone off time when you're working, or were you constantly checking your phone? Did you like take care of your mood, right? Like, even if you felt shit today, know that you can flip the page, and then the next day it's brand new. You can use gratitude. You can connect with other people, talk to your friends. There are multiple tools available to boost up your mood, even if your score is not that high today. And it's it just puts everything together. So 2 things. One thing is, we think people don't high five themselves enough, right? Like, that's what the big and small wings. And if you don't put a score to it, or like a concrete value to it, like how do you know if you're really doing well or not, right? We'll call it today well spent. Like, what do you spend? There's a value to it, so we want to put the value there, and you can also compare and track. I love the PR system that you came up with. That's awesome. I've never thought of that before. And another thing is, we noticed a lot of people, like, when they're lying in bed, they're like, thank God today's over, and I don't look forward to tomorrow, but I'm too tired to think. I just want to sleep. And that's the worst way to finish your day. So we want people to, kind of review different areas. Like, even if I didn't do so well here, maybe there are other parts I did well. And again, even if you didn't do well on all aspects, there's the next day. So it's kind of the mentality that we want people to adopt with this kind of practices.
Yeah, I think it just helps cultivate just greater levels of self-awareness.
Right.
And then so what I was saying about how we brought this into the gym is that in all of our online programs and all of our personal training clients, we incorporated a check-in system, which is very similar to your 4 questions, but it's a score out of 5 and a daily total and then a weekly total. And so this is kind of mandatory that every person following our program has to complete this. And what it essentially does in the fitness space is it gives people that, like you said, that objective measure, which really tells you what do you have to give today in this moment. And then, looping that back into the training scenarios, okay, well then how do you then modulate your training to match what you have available to give today?
Right.
Which I think is like the biggest missing piece when it comes to longevity in training, especially in this kind of training space where people have no problem going hard. In fact, people probably go too hard. What we're trying to get people to do is slow down a little bit. And having this ability to have the kind of check-in system and a rating system just creates higher levels of self-awareness. And then if you can give them the tools to know, well, if my scores are low, what do I do? If I've come to Coastal Fitness and I'm in a group class and I'm training with all my friends, but the training session says I should do something hard, what do I do about that? And then we give people the power to say that you can still make that decision yourself. And just maybe today you just go easy. You just take it a little bit lighter. You don't try and increase your weights from 2 weeks ago. Maybe today is not a good day to race against everyone else.
I love that.
But what I also love about the check-in system and having the tangible scores is that when you are going through maybe a not so good patch, maybe you're getting consecutive low scores and you just get that feeling that life is just not working out for you, knowing that you can just flip a page and look back at last week and to see that things are really good actually can be, almost very relieving in a sense that it's like, actually life isn't all doom and gloom. I'm just having a not very good week or I had a not very good couple of days. But if I look back here, things were actually really good.
Right.
Now, what do I need to do in my life now to get my scores back up again?
Yeah, exactly.
And that, so I think about that a lot, right? And you can go back into the journal and be like, what was I doing in those weeks? What was happening in life that was allowing me to lock in good scores? And what am I not doing now that I can step up and bring that back,
Wow. That's something that's new information for me as well. That's a really great perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about, you've launched this, you've spoken a few times about launching this in Chinese.
Right.
So I guess, are you doing a big push in China? Is that your main focus at the moment?
Until today, yes.
Okay. I feel like there's a lot of things. Okay, gotcha. What have been the challenges? What are the differences, working with the Chinese population versus, I guess this would be, who are you targeting with this first journal that's all written in English?
Right. So when we first launched, we launched in Hong Kong. Everything was in English. And we went to Iris. You know the Iris Festival.
Yeah, we always go to Iris as well.
Yeah. So we had a booth there, and then we realized we don't really have to explain what the journal is. People just open it. If it's something that they think they would adopt, they will get it. If not, you don't. There's not much to bargain or to explain. But when we're pushing this in China, people had no idea what this thing is.
Why?
I think just knowledge gap. So when we launched this journal, it was really to address the burnout situation in a lot of modern humans, especially in China. So you heard of the 996 culture.
No, I haven't.
So it's 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week.
Okay.
So there's another one. Is it 007, right? Yeah.
Which means?
Like no time off, 7 days a week. So that's what you went through. That's a common lifestyle of people who work in China, the young people, and that was really absurd. So we thought this is the answer because I think the approach that we adopt that's different from other wellness brands is that we put wellness together with performance, and they are interrelated and they contribute to each other. So if you want to work hard, no problem. Don't sacrifice your health to work hard. Make your health the fuel for your hard work. So that was really logical in our mind. But when we were promoted in China, it's not really speaking to people's immediate needs. So people's immediate needs came from their hard lifestyle. So they want to either reduce stress, sleep better, fix their, emotional issues, or extremely just boost up energy and productivity. And they don't see the connection between all those areas. So if they want to sleep better, they want to take a pill. If they want to, if they want physical health, they go to like those massage or whatever programs, right? If they work out, it's because they want muscles. They want to look good. It's not because, other mental benefits. And if they want productivity, they don't have it because they just work hard. They don't care if they're productive or not. So that's the common situation right now in China. And we found it was really hard for us to cut in to really tell people like, don't treat those symptoms separately. Like you got to build the foundation, and from the foundation, whatever problem you have, like you're going to be able to find an answer because you have the control. You know how your body works, you know how your brain works, you know how your mind, if we want to call it that way, right? Like then you can make it work for you. But I think especially after the pandemic, I think a lot of young people are feeling nihilistic and helpless for a reason that I won't go into today. And they do you know the lay flat culture?
No.
Okay, so that's a common thing in China right now. So lay flat means they know that hustling won't take them anywhere. So I just lay flat.
And do nothing.
And the opposite of that, so this is an extreme, right? The opposite of that, it's an involution culture. Involution means I work really, really, really hard by working longer hours. Not because my work is better than yours, but I win the competition because I worked longer hours. That's involution. You're not evolution, right? So those two extremes are where most people are right now in China, and we're really trying to bring them in the middle, right? Like I think, the ups and downs of the day, the mood, your energy level, like that's the rhythm of life. That's the nature of life. You're never going to be forever peak, and you'll never be forever down. If you want to come up, there are ways. If you want to, just tone down a little bit and relax, there are ways as well. But when you're so caught up in the two extremes, you really don't see any other way. And that was why I was really burnt out by, trying to promote this idea last year. Versus when we're promoting this abroad, there's not much we need to do. Like you open it, you know exactly what this is, right? Nobody needs to explain to you why you need to meditate, why you need to breathe, why you need to focus on one thing instead of writing down like 100 to-dos. Like this is common sense to a lot of people already in the Western culture, thanks to the content that a lot of experts are putting out, right? So I was really into Andrew Huberman. So he's my number one person. He really, he was the one who put brain in our triangle because, even the word mind is still very abstract, but brain is concrete. And if you know how it works, you can up your chance of making your day count more. So I think what we did in China was we tried to bring those kind of education and content to the Chinese audience, and we attracted quite a few that are interested, but they stay on the knowing level. They're not on the doing level. And that's something that we're striving to create with our offline communities. So we want people to know, you now you've read an article about the benefits of meditation. Do you want to try it? Okay, come to our offline meditation events. We make it really cool. We have live DJs playing electronic music, because there's a bias when people think of meditation in China. They think it's old, it's traditional, it's religious, but it doesn't have to be. So that's the kind of the work that we were doing until last year. We couldn't host any events, so that was kind of a struggle. But now it's all over. We're still trying to push more. We're recording more meditation, in our style, in Today Well Spent style, digitally. So we're not going to be bound by offline restrictions.
That's really cool. I think you answered the question that was looming in my head, which is how do you break down, How do you change that culture that is so extreme on two ends? And I guess it's going to come down to education. But my question was like, how? How do you even start with education? But I love the idea of these offline events and bringing people together and actually having them try and experience it.
Right.
And I like that idea of the knowing versus doing. It's really cool.
Yeah, because I think it all came from personal experiences. Like we read a lot before we started journaling. We read, we watched, we listened to podcasts, but not until you feel the effect on yourself, you wouldn't know if it's real or not. It would just be theory.
What does the future hold for Today Well Spent and you?
Whew. Well, for sure, we're going to put more effort in promoting our journals in the Western world. That was completely neglected because I put most of my effort in China. And I'm really hoping we can still be the gap bridger between wellness and performance, between knowing and doing, and between Eastern and Western. Because I think I'm Chinese and my partner, he's Canadian. We really have a good understanding of both worlds because my partner lived in China for over 8 years and his family from India. So we knew from the beginning like this fusion of Eastern and Western will be a big part of Today Well Spent. It's just for now, we're kind of thinking, even like, when we're talking about the heart and the brain, the heart is the Eastern way, the traditional way, and the brain is the logic way, it's the science, it's modern. So even by bridging those two, I think we can make a lot of sparkles.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for creating the journal. Like it really has had a profound impact on my life. And I think I was already someone that was very self-aware, that had tried a lot of things. I resonate a lot with your story and your journey. And then to find a journal that kind of leveled me up even more, which is kind of crazy. And I recommend your journal to so many people. I think most of our team members in this gym now have it. So thank you so much for making the trip, to give yourself some breathing space, but also to sit with me on this podcast and share everything about the story behind it. It's really cool to hear, what went into making what I look at every single day and will probably continue to look at every single day for a really, really long time. So thank you, Mensa.
Thank you, Ed. I want to say this is really meaningful for us because we're not creating this to sit in the bookstore or to make money. We're really creating it to change people's lives. And by knowing that it had made some impact in your life and your team and your friends, it hit the heart really hard.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mensa.
Thank you.